Today we're going to take our first deep dive into one of Ableton's features, and we're going to take a closer look at Session View today and how we use it with respect to adding instruments and recording MIDI tracks or audio tracks. So, as you remember, what I'm looking at right now, this is Session View. This has all of our channels lined up horizontally throughout our window, and we can, if we wanted to add any more channels, we can just either right-click in this blank region here and insert a MIDI track or insert an audio track. Or if you had an instrument that you wanted to mess around with, like say you wanted to start messing around with some wavetable, you can just drag that in to the project and that'll add in itself as well. Let's say you see we have a couple of MIDI files here, and you wanted to keep all your MIDI files to MIDI channels together and your audio channels together. You can rearrange all of your tracks by just clicking and dragging them. So I'm just going to drag that one over there, so that way that's with that. And I'll drag my wavetable over as well, because that is technically a MIDI channel. And then we've got our 3 audio channels here too that we have. So you see I have 2 blank MIDI channels here. Now if we don't put any instrument on them, we're not going to get any output on them. We will, however, if I click this button, I'll go over that later, you'll see that I am getting input from my keyboard, but we're not hearing anything. And that's because there is no instrument to transmit that MIDI data into audio or sound, and that's what these instruments do. So if you wanted to add an instrument to an empty MIDI track, all you do is just choose an instrument. Let's go ahead and choose analog. We'll have that up there. And just drag that onto the track, and it'll load into this MIDI channel. As you can see there, now we have analog, and we have that MIDI channel there. And if I play a note, we get sound now. Okay. So we've got a bunch of tracks here to work with, and just another quick overview of the layout of Session View. This over here, where all of our channels lie, is going to be our work area, or where we are doing all of our creation in. And then everything to the right of that is going to be essentially our return tracks, or which are these 2 right here. And we can add more return tracks if we wanted to. If I just go ahead and right click, I can insert a return track. And it functions the same way a bus send does in Logic. However, Ableton is nice enough to pre-route everything for us. As you can see on all of our channels now, we've got A, B, and C knobs, and those are referring to the return tracks A, B, and C. And then to the right of that, we've got our master channel. This essentially controls the final signal stage, or the final stage of the signal before it leaves Ableton to your speakers or headphones. And we've got a slider and a panning knob there as well. And then if you ever mess with any of these parameters, like say I moved my panning knob all the way over there and I want to just get it back to its default setting, all you need to do is just double click on it. And you'll see here in the master track that we've got numbers on the right side, 1, 2 through 8. This is referring to the horizontal row. As you can see, when I click on 1, it lights up this entire row. That entire row is referred to as scene 1 within Ableton, and so forth, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4. Now the reason that's important, you will start to see when you start adding more clips into your project and are starting to mess around with arranging your project after you've composed a few loops. And if you wanted to add more scenes, you could do that too. You could just right click and insert scene, or Control I, Command I if you're on Mac, I believe. Insert scene. Now we have 9, 10, 11, and I'll just go ahead and hit Control I to prove it to you. 12, 13. We now have 13 scenes there. Okay, so those are scenes. Now, what about our little boxes within the scenes? Well, each box is referred to as a clip. You can think of these as a loop, or as an individual loop in Logic. You can think of it that way. Or as if you've ever used a sequencer or a looping device for guitar or anything that plugs into an audio chain. That's essentially what this is. You're storing a bunch of loops in clips that you can then go back and play or mess around with later on. Now, each channel has a from input, or like an input and an output. Now for MIDI channels, they'll say MIDI from. For audio channels, they'll say audio from, and that's where you can decide if you have specific external devices that you want the audio to come from, or say you have an internal internal program on your computer that you want to take audio from. You can designate that there. And same thing for MIDI. This is where you can choose where your MIDI information is coming from. And then below that, you can either say take it from all the channels that are available to this device, or you can specify a channel. Now that's a little bit more of an advanced technique, but if you do wanted to mess around with that, you can specify which MIDI channel to receive from. And then below that, we've got our monitor, and this you can have different levels where you have off, where you'll notice the best way to figure this out is you watch the meter here when it's off and you're playing in it. I'm right now playing keys on my keyboard and we're not hearing anything. We set it to auto. You can hear something. We have, it's basically like a monitor and here and then in. Operates as a lot like auto, but this is very helpful if you're receiving MIDI from another MIDI track within your project and you want to specify that this is in only, or if you're in audio, if you're receiving audio from another track, you can specify it as in. And you can see there that it did pick up my mic because I said that this is in, but right now all my audios are off. So I just recommend when you're first starting out in Ableton, leave it set to auto. Ableton's pretty good about discerning all of that. Now below that, we've got our audio 2. Now every track, if it has an instrument on it, if it's MIDI or audio, is going to have an audio 2 function. And this is where you can, if you wanted to get a little fancy and create some submixes or some interesting or divert signal flow to some other track for whatever reason, you can change that here, but they default to master, which is our master track over here. So all of these channels are going to our master track. Now you'll notice here on this empty MIDI channel that I have, number 3, right now it says it doesn't have audio 2, it says MIDI 2. And that's because, like I said, there is no instrument on this track to convert the MIDI data to audio. All of these instruments, operator, analog, and wavetable, they're taking in MIDI data and then converting them to an audio signal to be sent out to our master track, our master channel, sorry. Okay, and then so back on channel 1 here, and then below that we've got all of our sends like I alluded to, so A, B, and C, and if you add in another return track, you'll notice that we'll get another knob there, so I'll go ahead and do that. If I just go ahead and right click in the region and insert return track, we now have return D, and we now have a new knob, our new send, which is D. So that's really nice that Ableton does that for us. Below that, we've got our slider where we can adjust the output levels of this channel specifically. All sliders default at unity. We've got our panning knob to the left of that, so straight up and down or high noon is equal balance between left and right ears, all the way to the left, all the way to the right. Below that is our channel number. Now you can select these channel numbers. If a number is gray, that means you are essentially turning that channel off. You can turn them back on just by clicking on the number again. You've got your solo function if you want to just hear that channel. And then this little guy down here. This is our record enable or our channel arm button. So if you have a MIDI keyboard hooked up to your computer or a microphone and you want to record audio or record something that you played in your keyboard, you have to arm the recording. And you'll notice here that you'll get a nice little hint as I'm hovering over this. You get a little hint over here in the info view as to what it does. So if I had this off and I played on my keyboard, we're not going to hear anything. I'm playing notes. Now, if I turn it on, we are getting sound. Now, one cool thing here is that you can right click on this and you see how it says ARM exclusive preference. That is giving us a shortcut to our preferences in which we can say the record enable buttons are only exclusively armed, or if we uncheck that, that will allow us to arm multiple tracks at once. And just to demonstrate, if you see all the sliders there, or all the meters, you will notice that signal will go to all 3 of them. Whereas now if I just right click on it again and select ARM exclusive, and I click on that guy, we will only hear the channel that I have selected. And if I click on analog, it'll switch it to just the analog or to the wavetable. Okay. So those are the basics of all the controls within the channel. Now let's get to actually recording some loops. So you notice I'm going to just work in this first channel here. I selected my ARM exclusive so that way I can record from my MIDI keyboard. And let's just say I want to record a track here. Now, before we record a track, I highly recommend that or let's actually not get to that. Let's just record a track and see what happens. So if I hit this little circle here in the clip, it will start to record within that clip. So recording clip 1 in scene 1. And so it is actually actively recording right now. So if I play some notes, I can hit spacebar and stop it. Now if we play that back, okay, we've got that recording. Now you'll notice that I didn't get any count in, I didn't get any warning that the recording was going to start. Now you can set all of that with our global transport controls up here in the top left of Ableton. So if we check out here, we've got a tap where you can click and just tap a tempo essentially, and that'll give you the tempo. So if I'm clicking really fast, yeah, so 265, okay, that's a little too fast. So if I click really slow, oops, clicking the wrong button, 70. All right, so let's just reset that to 120. It defaults at 120. And then these functions are when you're utilizing the live features of Ableton and doing live looping or anything with regards to that. That's simply just nudge backwards or nudge forwards. Actually, we can demo that if we play this. And I turn my metronome on. Listen to the frequency of the metronome. So those are just nudge forwards and nudge backwards to gently speed up the tempo or anything like that. Let's go ahead and stop this track, turn our metronome off. To the right of that, we've got our time signature where we can set time signatures. It defaults to 4/4. I recommend staying in 4/4 for your first couple times using Ableton, and then you can start messing around with some funky time signatures, and it can get quite fun, actually. And then to the right of that, we've got our metronome. As you can see, I click on it, and it starts keeping the tempo at whatever tempo we have set. Now, if I click on this little drop-down arrow, you'll notice that I get some options here. You can set a count in, so I can give myself a 1-bar count in. Now what that means is that if I were to record another track, let's go ahead and just record another clip here. Actually, let's do this differently. Let's go enable while recording. It gave me a little bit of warning before I started recording. Do that again. We got some more warning. Now we can change that count in time to whatever you want, 2 bars, 4 bars, or whatever you want. You can change the sound, and then you can change the rhythm if you want. So let's say we wanted to get some triplets in there. This will change to subdivision of the metronome. kind of fudged it up there at the end. But that could be helpful if you're trying to record along. However, if you have a longer latency with your keyboard, that might get a little bit difficult there. But it's just helpful. That was probably actually a too fast of a tempo for the triplet to really be useful. All right, so now we've recorded a bunch of clips in this first track here, and you notice they're all named based on the channel 1, 3, 5. Whoops, I just accidentally did that. Didn't want to do that. But how do we view what's in these clips to be able to edit them? Well, just simply double click on it, and it brings up our piano roll. As you can see here, we've got all of our MIDI notes here that I played. We've got our piano roll on the left here. And we've got some more stuff to the left here that we can talk about a little bit later on when we start getting more advanced into utilizing the live features of Ableton. So you can see here right now I'm not starting on a downbeat. It was kind of poor rhythm. So let's say we want to just first off get this to start right at the beginning of the track. So I can just select all of my MIDI notes and I can just simply drag them over to the beginning of the track there. And now let's say I want to clean up the rhythm there a little bit. It could be a little better. So let's say we want to quantize our MIDI information, which quantize refers to just aligning to a grid. We can select our MIDI notes. I'm just going to hit Control A. I'm going to pay attention to these guys here in this first bar or two, in these first two bars. You'll see that these guys, the start of each note is not exactly on our grid. We can change that by quantizing it. So if I just right click, I can either hit quantize or I can go to my quantize settings and you can set it to whatever grid you want. So 16th is what I want. You can say, how do you want to adjust the note? Do you want to adjust it so the start of the note or the note on message is starting on the 16th, or do you want the end of the note, start or end, and end, or just end? And then you can change the accuracy amount. So if we do like 80% accuracy, it's not going to be exactly perfect. And there you can see we've kind of got a couple of notes that are starting just a little too, not quite perfectly on the grid. Like you can see this guy, if I zoom in, that the start of that note isn't perfectly on the grid. And that just adds a little bit of realism to your track. Now we can go down and we can view our other clips here. As you can see here, we've got some notes there. Let's say I want to quantize this, but I want to quantize it maybe to the half note or something. Or actually, we'll just do it to the quarter note. Keep it simple. So I'll go to my quantize settings, change it from 16th to quarter note, and we'll just do the start. And we'll do start and end this time, see how that changes it. And there we go. We see that we got all my notes quantizing perfectly to the chord. Now see here, there's a little mistake here that I kind of want to fix. These two chords are overlapping a little bit, and I don't actually want that. I want this note to be with this note, not with these three notes here. So I'm just going to zoom into that a little bit, scroll over to it to get a better view of it. I'm just going to click this guy, and I'm just going to click him and drag him over to line up with this guy here. And that'll fix our problem there. And you can do that with anything. And you can also go in and let's say I actually wanted this to be a 3-note chord as well. So I can add in a bass note of a D, and I just double clicked on D. You can see here, D2. And I can just drag that out to whatever length I want. And there we go. And I can do that here with this chord as well. Okay, I want to make that an E. I'm going to double click and drag it out. Okay, and you can even get a little crazy with that too. We can say we've got these three notes here. We've got A is this note, and we've got B for that one. So I'm going to go down here. I want to double that at the octave, way down there. But I'm going to actually hold it through over that chord. We're going to change that, and then we're going to go down to, what is that, a G? We'll go down to a G. We'll carry that all the way through. And that's how you can add in notes if you wanted to. Or if you wanted to draw them in, there's a little pencil tool up here in the upper right-hand corner where you can go in and draw them in. Now, right now, because my grid is set to 16th notes, everything that I draw is a 16th note. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. Or actually, yeah, there we go. Now, what I can do is instead set my grid to, that's not the one I want. Actually, no, that is the one I want. Let's set our grid to quarter notes. And you'll see here our hash marks changed. So now if I draw again, it's just going to draw quarter notes. Quarter notes. Let's undo that again. If we change our grid to half notes, which is the half, you'll see that each bar is now split into 2 half notes. And I draw, they're all going to be half notes. Okay. So that's how you can do that. I'm going to actually accidentally went too far back. Okay, so that's great and all, but now how do we listen to these back? Well, that's actually pretty simple. All you need to do is you'll notice that to the left of each clip there's a little play button. If you want to listen to a clip, just go ahead and press play. And then if we want to move to another clip in our track, and then you notice that it just started over. And you can track that with this little circle here on each track. There's a little circle, and that essentially tracks where you are in the loop of the clip. Now, if you wanted to stop the loop, we'll let it go one more time. If you want to stop that loop, all you need to do is just click the stop button to the left of it, and it'll stop it on a predetermined spot. Now, the way that you decide how each clip launches with respect to the grid that you're working with, whether it's quarter note, eighth note, 16th note, or bar, 2 bar, 3 bar, 4 bar, is with the global quantization or the global grid, which is up here, which is 1 bar. So essentially what that's going to do is it's going to launch each clip at the start of each next bar. We can change that to, let's say, every 2 bars. And so if I play this first one, and I immediately click on this second one, click on the next one, it's not going to play until 2 bars later. However, if I change that to, let's say, 8th note, you notice it's almost instant. Now you'll notice that when I start playing a new clip, it stops playing the clip before that. That's because all of these clips are vertically in this one channel, and it can only play one clip from one channel at a time. However, let's say we wanted this clip to play at the same time as this clip. Well, you can either duplicate the instrument or put it on a completely new instrument. And so what I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to click this clip and I'm going to drag it to a different instrument. I'm going to put it on my analog. And so now you'll see here I've got a clip on my analog instrument. Now let's say we want these to occupy the same scene just to stay organized because they're happening together. What I can do is I'm just going to go ahead and stop this. If you ever want to reset everything, just double click your stop button and the global transport. So we've got everything stopped. So now what I can do is I can start playing this clip. And then whenever I want to add in the next clip, I can start playing the second clip. And then if I want to change to the clip, another clip, and there you go. That's the basics of recording a clip within Session View in Ableton and playing back those clips and editing the clips. Just one more time, let's say we wanted to go in and edit this last clip here. I double clicked on it. It brings up my piano roll. You see we've got a whole bunch of notes over here. Well, let's first of all, we want to get those to start at the beginning of the clip most likely. So I'll just click and drag those all the way over. And there we go. And then let's quickly just quantize them. So again, reminder, right click, quantize settings. And these I want them to be quantized at the 8th note triplet. And we want start and end, and I'll just go ahead and hit OK. And there we go. We've quantized it. So that's just a quick overview of Session View and how you can add instruments to your project, record within a clip, and then edit the information that you recorded within the clip, and then playing back the clips. In our next lecture, we will go over actually designing instruments and creating and adding some more advanced effects within our projects.